Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Tom Laux, they brought the boss in today to get my better side. You'll find out why I have a face for radio. And the reason why Tom is here is it's our time for our Wood County update. Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml is in the studio, and it's been moving time. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, Carl. Thanks for having me. I'm working with the number one crew here today.
That's right. That's
on
right.
air and behind the cameras. And by the way, I love that weather forecast. You know, rain followed by more rain, maybe some snow, cold weather, and more rain. I'm about ready to build an ark out there. We need to see some sunshine.
I agree. It's a nice, dry, warm weather for a period of time.
I'd settle for dry.
Yeah, same here. But let's talk about the move. Folks have noticed the activity around downtown as the county is moving in offices. Park and Forestry Department just moved into downtown. So how's the move going?
It's going real well. And let me preface this a little bit. If we go back a number of years, we did a space needs study. And it was decided at that time, or ascertained, that the county needed somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 square feet of additional space to house those programs that are often either state or federally mandated.
Right.
It has grown. You probably remember back in the days when a police officer, carried a badge and a nightstick, and then a badge, a nightstick, and a gun, and then a stun gun and a taser. It kind of works that way in all of the departments. The government mandates that we provide more services, which typically means more people. So as the county's needs have grown and as staff has grown over time, we had the opportunity to consolidate most of those departments in a single building as the River Block building downtown, the old consolidated paper building, and then through many iterations became vacant. So we had a cost estimate to build a 30,000, 40,000 square foot building that was in the neighborhood of $30 million. We had the opportunity to buy the River Block building at a cost of about $2 million. And there were renovation costs on top of that, bringing the total budget for that whole move to about $5 million, but about 1/7 of the cost of what we were expecting to have to do in the future. So as that has progressed, as we purchased that building, as we began to remodel it, the remodeling is now just about totally complete, and the move has begun. They finished, and this only makes sense, the third floor first, then the second and the first. You don't want to be tracking all that construction material up the stairs and up the elevator, so you work your way down. And the move has started, and by May 1 should be completed. Now, as I say that, every time you kind of turn over another rock or stone, something else creeps up and grabs you a little bit. But generally speaking, I think we should be ready to go about May 1st.
Okay, and then to review, what departments will be in the River Block building?
A lot of them. The move was made originally to accommodate human services and the health department.
Right.
And then as we laid out the building and we saw we had additional space and additional room, land conservation, parks, there will be some ancillary departments that eventually move over there. The courthouse will generally be all of those constitutional offices that you would always associate with a courthouse. The courtrooms, the district attorney's offices, the sheriff's department, obviously the jail, and then those elected officials, the clerk of courts, the county clerk, the treasurer, the register of deeds, all those remain in the courthouse. While we've made this move over to the River Block building, we have also done a pretty extensive remodel of the courthouse itself. About 12, 13 years ago, we temporarily housed the dispatch center in the basement as we consolidated all those dispatch centers around the county into a single unit, again, to save taxpayers some dollars, which it obviously did. But we housed them down there temporarily 13 years ago, which was much longer than anticipated. As we've needed new equipment and as we've had the opportunity to replace stuff and move, acquire some space as people moved out. The dispatch center is going to have some new and improved equipment, which will help provide 911 services and the enhanced 911 services. The IT department, which needs additional servers and computers, will also be moving within the courthouse. But at this point, that will pretty much round out the moves. And I'm sure at some point there'll be a small department that may move one way, veteran service, for instance, one way or the other. There's those types that have 1, 2, 3 employees that may move as space is needed in either building.
And the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was to provide one-stop shop for folks that do business with the county. Here's a building, and you can go to all the departments you need to do. One stop, get it done, go on.
Yes. Those people who are served by Human Services are often served by Human Services in many of the different programs that we run, and those were located all over Wisconsin Rapids. We had offices on 12th Street and over at Centralia in the courthouse. If we can move it all to one-stop shopping, that would be conducive. And then many of those people use the services that our health department provides, and they will be in the same building. The thought at the end of the day is we consolidate those services in a downtown location, so there's, easily accessible between buildings if necessary, and then most of the services that you would require from any of those departments in a single location, and that will accomplish it. The building, by the way, is absolutely gorgeous. At some point, as we get more organized, I'm sure we'll open it up to public tours over, a couple of days, and then the important part is us making sure we get all the signs up and everything. As you drive by, you'll notice it's still called the River Block Building. We thought everybody associates the River Block Building with that name. They know where it is. Why change it?
Right. I mean, that's when you say River Block Building in Wisconsin Rapids, people know what building you're referring to. How many employees will be working there? And that's going to be a nice boost to the downtown. It
will be. I don't have an exact count, but it'll be in excess of 200. Could be 200, 225, 230. It depends as we ascertain exactly what space we have available. Like I said, what other departments may move in, but the anticipation is somewhere north of 2,000 or 200, and then another 200 plus clients a day that are served in that building. So it'll be a nice boost to the economy. Downtown Wisconsin Rapids, it should help revitalize that area to some extent. And obviously, if you look at county facilities throughout the county, you'll find those are some of the more well-maintained facilities. Usually something that's a real attribute to the community. So I think it benefits everybody at the end of the day.
If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're visiting with Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml getting his monthly report. Well, spring also brings another season. Road construction, the big Highway 54 project between Port Edwards and Dexterville has begun. How is everything going with, you started off, how many years now was it?
I think we're in the third year, Carl. The county made a commitment a number of years ago to bond in the neighborhood of $5 million a year, maybe a little short of that, to do those road improvements that really needed to be done. And those of you who follow the news realize that at state level, highway funding is at a crisis level. We decided in our county to get ahead of that a little bit because it's much less expensive to fix than to totally replace. We're coming along. We're actually a little bit ahead of schedule in some of those replacements. I think over the next year or two, you'll see that amount of bonding continue to decrease, and then on the back end, that debt gets paid off. But that's come along well. We've been able to do the projects. We've had fairly cooperative weather the last couple of years. We'll see how this goes. Like I said, it doesn't want to quit raining this year. But we're moving along well there. So that's one. And I'll go back and I'll touch real quickly, too. The River Block project that we did, too, that one came in, believe it or not, on budget, on time. And if I go back to 1956 when we built the original courthouse, I happened to pull some statistics the other day. That project was 50% over budget. So when you hear back in the old days we did everything on budget, on time, that one was 50% over budget upon completion. So I'm pretty happy that we are where we are today.
Okay, so we're on schedule, and our budget is in good hands. What about the state legislature? Joint Finance is in the process of rewriting a large portion of what the governor proposed, and that has to do with transportation. And I've had Representative Krug and Senator Teston talking about that, and they're getting input from local officials. What would you like to see Joint Finance do with that, since they've said, okay, let's take a look at this. We didn't like what the governor proposed. We're going to write our own.
I loved when you said, what about it? Because I didn't write back yet. What about it? I have the opportunity to sit on the Local Government Institute Board of Directors, and about 2 years ago we put a program together that would address the road funding issue. It was a nonpartisan approach. It had about 14 different elements that you could use to address that shortfall in highway funding and correct that problem we have with deteriorating roads all over the state. And when I say roads, I mean bridges too. The governor's stance has been we're not going to increase taxes, find the dollars somewhere else. The legislature, I think, has some realization that something needs to be done right now. They have kicked this can down the road year in, year out. Regardless of party in charge, it has not been addressed. And we're reaching a crisis. I remember I was one of those people who grew up, as a young child in Illinois. And I used to drive up to Wisconsin every weekend, and the roads in Wisconsin were great. The roads in Illinois were terrible. And I can tell you, I've driven the other way recently. The tollway system in Illinois is in fantastic shape. The roads as you approach Illinois are in terrible shape. Those of you who've driven down 41 or parts of 90 or 94 recently, I mean, you really have to move back and forth from lane to lane, or you're going to bend a rim, lose a tire, wreck your suspension. And I think, the more potholes they hit, the more it comes to the forefront. We need to do something, and it's going to be a combination of things, I think. You're not going to solve it through one single, what do I say? Source, fix. It's going to probably be at some point open road tolling, I'm guessing. You'll probably have a re-indexing of the gas tax. You might have some form of vehicle miles traveled, which does affect us more in the rural parts of the state because we drive farther. But there are ways to put in exemptions. Maybe the first 10,000 miles aren't taxed. But at some point, it needs to be addressed. It's getting extremely bad. I don't care if they take it from somewhere else. I don't care if they, to some extent, raise some new revenue, but the roads and bridges need to be addressed.
Yeah, well, it's part of our commerce, too. I mean, if you're trying to allure business to the state of Wisconsin, it's a key component of the infrastructure is a highway system where they can move product.
There is, and there's been some real unique approaches in different parts of the state. In the Appleton area, they set up a regional transit authority, which has some ability to tax. A wheel tax is not going to solve the problem. You've seen that in some places. It's short term. It might address the needs in a specific area, specific city or county. But forget the lines. I mean, we drive across county lines and in and out of cities all day long. We need a comprehensive highway funding package to get this done. I know the governor's aware of it. I know the legislature's aware of it. We're certainly aware of it at the local level. I guess the thing that I find somewhat amazing is we've provided, like I said, about 14 options to solve this, and none of them, everybody's afraid to vote for something because it might affect them getting reelected. I guess that's the beauty of being at the local level. You basically have representatives who are, to the most part, unpaid. They make decisions based on the best decision and not on reelection. And, when you're constantly in an election cycle, sometimes those decisions get driven by, I need to be there. Yeah,
that's the sad part. Although now you're hearing, like Representative Krug has said, he and some other lawmakers are tired of the borrowing. They're going that we can't afford to, as you said, kick the can down the road. Well, the way you kick the can down the road is to continue to borrow.
You can't borrow your way out of debt. I mean, that's kind of economics 101. It can't happen. You either need new revenues or you need to reallocate. One of the things I've talked about on your show often is, we need to really take a look at the state budget in its entirety. And we need to really look at what is the function of government. And when you look at some of the programs that we provide, you're going, is that really a function of government? I mean, we're pretty far out there on the edge on some of these. And when you get right down to it, public safety is usually number one. Transportation, education follow very closely behind. Those are the core functions, and we probably ought to fund those at the necessary levels and then really look at what we do on the fringes. And is that going to affect somebody? It will absolutely affect somebody. But again, what is the core function of government?
And then, like when you're dealing with transportation, let's get rid of some of the fancier stuff and just fix stuff. It doesn't need to be artsy. You heard the stories about the DOT's budget being, wasted, for lack of a better term.
Well, there is wasteful spending, and that goes without saying. And and some of that has to do with the way you spend federal money versus state money versus local money, who you have to have working those jobs, how it gets done, who the contractors are. And I guess as a taxpayer, what I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it resolved by the best person at the best price does the job, and they get it done on time. And I think if you look at some of the projects that government has done over time and as a whole, it typically takes a lot longer than it takes the private sector because there's that dirty word in there, profit motive. But I have no problem with somebody making a profit if they still bring in the project at a lesser cost and a better product than we can provide in the public sector.
And we're about to enter park season. The Wood County Park System opens this weekend, and there's been a number of upgrades over the years, and I would imagine you're looking for another good summer in Wood County parks, especially the campgrounds and the like. My
favorite season, and in one of my favorite departments, it's one of those that I used to work real closely with on the board. Our park system is a jewel amongst those in the state of Wisconsin, the different county park systems. We have great campgrounds and facilities that have been upgraded over time. The amount of power we can provide, for instance, to large trailers or motorhomes coming in, the pads that they park on, the beaches have been improved, the trails have been improved, shelters have been rebuilt, repurposed. We've done a tremendous job in that area, and the use in our parks, when we talk about camping and some of those others, is about 50% of those users are local, about 50% are from out of town. The one thing I encourage the people who live here that are listening to this show is that you get out and you make a reservation early if you're planning on camping, or you need a shelter or something like that for a party, anniversary party, graduation party, wedding, you name it, because those do go fairly quickly. It's a very valuable resource for us to have, and we certainly like to accommodate the public, but get your reservations in early if you plan to camp. There's a lot of big events going on in this community all the time, although you always hear people saying there's nothing happening.
Yeah, right.
I got news for you. There's something happening all the time, and then we get calls saying, well, I can't believe I can't get a campsite in July. Well, that's because you waited too long. We got people waiting, for January 1 to roll around to start making reservations, or in some cases, you can make them 11 months out.
Okay, so now's the time to contact the Wood County Parks Department at their new office.
Yeah, take advantage of it. There's a lot of programs that we run at the county level and at the state level that, there's certain requirements to qualify to benefit from that program.
Right.
And the parks are open to everybody, regardless of status or income or anything else. And we do provide a beautiful system. It's extremely gratifying for me. I live very close to Lake Wazeecha.
That's where Pam and I like to go. And when we had our dog, we used to take walks over along Lake Wazeecha.
And all you got to do is walk around that trail on any nice day if it stops raining again, like I said before. And the trail is, there are people out around that lake. There's people on the lake. The campgrounds happen. There's usually some graduation parties, anniversary parties, maybe a wedding going. Like I said, a highly used facility. It's out there for the public enjoyment, and it is a beautiful park, as is, Dexter and North Park and some of the other smaller parcels of property that we have around. And then there's the county forest, which is open year-round. But, we have 38,000 acres of county forest for your enjoyment.
Yeah, and you want to get away and not have to drive far.
It's right here. My wife always says, let's go camping at Lake Wazeecha, and I always tell her we live a mile away. But that doesn't change her mind. She still wants to go camping at Lake Wazeecha.
Well, I just love the fact that when I go out to Lake Wazeecha, I'm in a different world. And it's beautiful out there.
And it gives you the opportunity to meet people from all over the state and sometimes the country. And, the one common theme I hear everywhere we go, and Carl and I have talked about this before, is the people in this area are extremely friendly and accommodating. And that's why we have the opportunity on an annual basis to host some of the events we do, including the water ski tournament, which not only have we hosted the national and the world tournament, but that creates recognition for our area. And every single person out there, whether you're in the campground, whether you're in town, waving to somebody saying, hi, you are an ambassador for our area. And I guarantee you that we hear that in the political spectrum all the time. And it's one of the things that will continue to bring business to our area also.
And I think with people coming to visit, whether to go to Rome to see Sand Valley or something, they're going to be staying around here in Wisconsin Rapids area and they might be camping. They might have their camper with, and they're going to go camp at one of our beautiful campgrounds and welcome them. I mean, I actually enjoy visiting people from outside the area who point out things that maybe we take for granted.
Well, and a great opportunity is going to be the Sand Valley course that's opening here in a couple weeks. The people do not realize the scope of this project. You're going to have people not only from around the country, but around the world.
They already have.
Our area.
Yeah.
And some of those people, you can golf part of the time, but the rest of the time you're going to be somewhere else, and that's probably going to be downtown Wisconsin Rapids. So it's a great time for our city to shine. I know we have a large contingent of people out at Bandon Dunes right now. Mm-hmm. I was invited to go on that trip. I had other commitments. I couldn't go. I regret the fact I couldn't go. It sounded like a fantastic trip. I know the mayor's out there, and some of the other people who deal with economic development. But the opportunities that we're going to have because of that development are going to be huge. And I'm going to say that most of the people in Wisconsin Rapids are not even aware of where it is as I go around and talk to people. But take the opportunity, drive down there, take a look at it, and then make sure you are one of those best ambassadors that we have for our area.
And just remember, a lot of those people are business people. They're going to be flying in on their corporate jet to play those courses. And when they're driving around, they might say, boy, this is a nice town. I like this spot here. Let's check out. Could we do something here?
Absolutely. And that's my point. It's those people come in town. Property is somewhat inexpensive. The labor pool is educated and fairly large. We want you to locate your business here. And they are flying in on private jets. And I want every one of those jets to land in Wisconsin Rapids. And I want us to be able to provide transportation and housing for those people. When they're talking 400, 500, 600 employees out at that facility at build-out, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities in this area right now, and I want to make sure we take advantage of it.
Okay. Well, let's get some dry weather and then and some nice warm weather and get the late spring and early summer season off to a good start, and hopefully it'll be a very profitable one for everybody in Wood County.
Okay, that sounds great. Are you in charge of that weather?
Well, I'm going to put in the call.
It was the AccuWeather guy on my phone. He's been terrible lately.
Okay. Well, see, that's you got to know the right people. Hey, Lance, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
That's Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. And that's going to do it for part one of today's edition of the Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. We also thank our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being here for part one. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you by Comfort Air.